All right, Shalom. Before I start, going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachachorash, to honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim. Wa'akwath, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity, under the video through the Spirit. Your brother Malak from GMS Detroit. Hey, y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what day it is, so-called. All right, we're going to, I got this video from PBS. We'll play it. It's only 11 minutes, but I also got this clip I want to start with. What is the truth behind so-called Thanksgiving? Was it a joyous day between the settlers and the Native American peoples who shared turkey and corn and hugged and kisses? No, obviously not. The reality is that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the biblical Edomites, they came to this land. They deceived, lied, and tricked their way, right? Straight up murdered their way to the top. And that's how they acquired this land. They didn't get it through honest means. They didn't get it through a fair agreement to, hey, we can fight over this and made a better man take it. None of that. They got this land through deception and lies, and ultimately it was prophecy. Right, Esau Edom right now, he's having a campaign of slaughter, a campaign of lies, right, omitting true history. And so we're going to play some real history. We're just going to see how this land was acquired, and then in particular this day that people are celebrating. Was it a day of peace between the two peoples? No. All right, and it should be remembered that this man committed atrocities and genocide to acquire this land, which is why it must happen upon him. Thus saith the scriptures, whether you like it or not. So let's get let me actually start. I'm gonna get these two clips from the gram. We'll get some precepts, and we'll get the YouTube video. We'll let it go.
About your race and your empire will die, and you know what? All of this land will come right back to us, and I guarantee you, all my people.
Aren't we all people? Aren't we all human beings?
You don't treat us like human.
And now America's going to be completely destroyed. She doesn't understand that part, right? We do. But
all of this, I don't care.
We will regain power in the earth, and that much is true.
About your race and your empire will die, and you know what? All of this land will come right back to us, and I guarantee you, all my people.
Aren't we all people? Aren't we all human beings?
You don't treat us like human beings.
Well, you just said you don't care about us.
I don't. I really don't. We're going to continue to grow while your race dies off. And that's what it really is your white supremacy. You are so scared that...
You're going to continue to grow while we die off.
You're so scared that your women aren't having children. That's why you're trying to ban abortion. Y'all want y'all white women to have children because your race is dying off. Mine is
Are you
growing.
happy about that?
I don't really care. I just care about my race, black people and brown people growing. I don't care about you. You will build a border, you will build a wall, we will dig under it. And if you close what's under it, we will dig on top. Trust
Are you
me.
against borders?
I am.
So no borders.
I don't think we should have a border here. I think it should be controlled, yes. I don't think anyone should come in.
How are we going to control it if there's no border?
All right, and so, she was cutting him. So you see, he started he's asking them retarded ass questions. You don't care about all people? You don't treat us like people. Perfect comeback. You don't treat us like people. Why should we care about y'all? And you've shown us at every step and turn of the way that you hate our guts. And that's how Esau, he likes to play both sides of the fence. He'll have one devil be the hardball demon up front, then he'll have the slithery snake coming from behind to soft talk you. And then when you look over, you're being closed in from both sides. So it doesn't matter either way. Right, and our people, she said black and brown, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. We are the children of Israel. Right now we are divided, but soon we will be reunited through Yahweh Shai. And when that day comes, Esau won't be able to stop it.
The Native American war against the colonizers, but they lost because they're too good of people. If you've ever studied Native American history or read books like An Indigenous People's History of the United States or Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, you find out very quickly that the Native American people were absolutely amazing people. See how incredible and capable and fierce these people were. And at some point you begin to ask yourself, how did they lose? Especially when they won so many battles against the US government. And every time the government would lose, they would ask for peace, they would sign a treaty, and then immediately break that treaty. But when you see how many battles the Native Americans won against US soldiers, you just have to ask yourself, how did they lose? And the reason is because they were too good of people. Because even though their warriors were better than the US soldiers, even though they were better strategists than the US soldiers, the reason they lost is because they don't have evil in their heart. They didn't have hatred in their heart. They wouldn't resort to dirty tactics like starving people. They wouldn't resort to dirty tactics like hurting innocent women and children. Whereas the US Army would go into villages where they knew the men weren't there, and they would burn the teepees, and they would attack the women, attack the children. They would burn their winter supplies and starve them out. And the Native Americans didn't do this. Not only was it frowned upon in the Native American community to attack innocents, any of their tribe that did do it, they immediately turned on them. They turned on their own people, chastised their own people for committing those type of crimes. And this is ultimately what led to their defeat. Because when you're fighting an enemy that has no morals, how can you win if you actually have a heart? The Native Americans had a good heart. They had a moral compass that kept them from resorting to dirty tactics like the US Army would. And they were always willing to accept peace. They tried over and over and over again. Over 300 treaties were signed by the Native Americans in the name of peace, and the US government broke every single one of them. And despite all the good in their hearts and all the time and time again that they showed how good of people they were, they still, history remembers them as savages, even though the real savages, the ones really doing the scalping, was the American Army. They had such good hearts that they would go out of their way and at great cost to their own well-being and safety to protect innocents. And because they were such good people and they were willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect innocents, the US Army used that against them. And every time the Native Americans would come to the table for peace and sign a treaty in the name of peace, the soldiers would wait until the defenses of the Native Americans were down, and then they'd attack them anyway. Because who's going to hold them accountable? No one. It's just heartbreaking to realize that the reason why the Native Americans were almost completely wiped out, the reason they lost all of their lands, all of their rights, all of their true freedom, because they had true freedom, the reason they lost all of that is because they were such good people, because their hearts were actually good and pure, and it cost them everything. And Native
Now, right, no, hey, everybody down here is capable of evil. They weren't completely spotless, pure. Certain tribes were born with each other. But we know that for the most part, and the interactions between Gad and Reuben and the Edomites, the northern kingdom here was trying to show Esau, the colonizers, the benefit of the doubt. And every single time they got backbitten. Esau, Edom came with an absolute ruthless, cutthroat, satanic mentality, right? Win at all costs. They lied, they cheated, they stole. And that's how they acquired the land. And, we're going to go pull up the little documentary here shortly. The bigger thing behind it all is the simple fact that it was prophecy. The Heavenly Father set it up to where Northern Kingdom had to be overcome in this land so that America could be built up to the empire that it was destined to be today. But what these people forget is the back part of that prophecy. Genesis 49 and 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And Gad itself means troop, God, right? Ga and Da. It was prophesied that they would be overcome by a troop, meaning what? A enemy brigade, a platoon of soldiers. Who were the Native Americans, of North, South, and Central America overcome by? The colonizing European settlers, Edomites, right? Famous names: Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortez, right? They touched down, they investigated, they deceived, and then they destroyed. That's how the Edomites operated. They made treaties, they said they would uphold certain things, and they turned their backs and killed folk, right? Washington, George Washington, Andrew Jackson, famously known as the Indian Killer, on your $20 bill. These people set up laws. These people raped, killed, robbed, right? Targeted children, targeted elderly, targeted the sick, killed off animals. This is the reality of how this land was taken. There ain't nothing thankful about today. There ain't nothing good or glorious about today. The These people acquired this land through slaughter. All right. And we're not thankful. God damn it.
We're here, trying to keep up. Look at all this cool new stuff Petco's got. What is that?
Of the original Thanksgiving Treaty first. I'll give you one. There's a lot about the first.
So we're gonna dive into it, right? We started with the scripture. We're gonna dive into it. And let me get this also. Esau Edom, the so-called white man, he's never been about peace. He's the red horse. When he comes, what does he come to do? John 10:10. The thief cometh not but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Esau Edom comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That is it. That is all. He introduced smallpox blankets, disease warfare. He introduced fire water, as Gad and Reuben called it, right? Being unaccustomed. Alcohol got folk drunk to make it easier to kill them. Many a devious of tactics, as we're going to see here in this video, around this so-called holiday in particular. This involved a particular, this is battles broke out on this day. The lie that we were taught in school, they had, you put your hand down on a paper, traced around your hand, and it drew some eyes and a beak around it. No, that's not how this land was acquired. That's what's known as American exceptionalism. Let me get that word real quick. American exceptionalism is the theory that the United States is unique and stands apart from other nations due to its history, ideals, and global role, and it's not. This land, you so-called white people, this land didn't just stand up one day and make the world great. You acquired it through rape, robbery, and murder. It says this belief is rooted in principles like liberty, democracy, and individualism, which is all a lie. It says originating from the country's revolutionary founding and has been used to justify its expansion and foreign policy. However, the concept is complex and contested, with critics pointing to instances like slavery and other national shortcomings as counter-arguments to the idea of inherent superiority. Exactly. Esau likes to frame this country as it being the pinnacle of human accomplishment, superiority, and morality, and it is the exact opposite. Y'all raped children. Them colonizers gave STDs to indigenous children. You scalped folk. You tortured Israelite women. You tortured black women for as experiments for gynecology. You castrated black men. You chopped off the sexual organs of Israelite men for your pleasure. That is the history of this bloodstained country, which is one reason among many why it's going to be destroyed.
There's a lot about the first Thanksgiving that's a myth. For one, they were eating corn porridge and eels, not turkey and pumpkin pie. It is true, however, that there's a lot about the first Thanksgiving that's a myth. For one, they were eating corn porridge and eels, not turkey and pumpkin pie. It is true, however, that Wampanoag chief Massasoit managed to foster peace between the Pilgrims and his people, but that peace wouldn't last. Half a century later, his son, known as King Philip, united indigenous tribes in an all-out war on the colonists of New England. What would follow was not just the deadliest conflict of the colonial period, but a defining moment in a centuries-long battle between the United States and indigenous people. I'm Joel Cook, and this is Rogue History. Rebels and Revolutionaries.
And this isn't critical race theory. This is fact. These things happen. God damn it.
So who violated the spirit of the original Thanksgiving Treaty first? I'll give you one guess. It's a hard one.
Exactly. Who do you think broke it, y'all? I'll let you take a guess.
I know. The second generation of English colonists was no longer content to practice their religion in privacy or trade for survival. Their population was absolutely exploding. They wanted land, lots of it, and they were developing an entire legal framework to legitimize straight up taking it. Until this point, Chief Massasoit had a very diplomatic relationship with the colonists. But as the decades wore on, the English continuously tested the boundaries of treaties, eventually breaking them outright. This is where Chief Massasoit's son, King Philip, comes into the picture. His Wampanoag name was Metacom, but his father encouraged 2 of his sons to adopt English names as a sign of respect for English customs.
Wow. So Coonan, and that's another big one, y'all. Our people, you keep showing love to the enemy, and they would take advantage of that. So he made them Chief Massasoit had his 2 sons. That's why the King Philip is actually the Gadite, y'all. But his father had him take on those names, trying to show peace, which is why y'all, as that guy was saying in that video off Instagram, Northern Kingdom was being too nice, and that's one of our flaws, y'all. As a people, that is one of our flaws. We're too nice to the enemy, right? We're too nice to the enemy, and the enemy take advantage of that every time. Wherefore what? Hey, Jeremiah 2, I gotta go there. Remember, the Heavenly Father allowed all these things to happen because Gad and Reuben had to be conquered. So he put a really foolish spirit on them. Invite the enemy in, show him how to live on the land, learn his language, marry some of them. Hell, let some of his men marry your women and produce tares, right? This all happened for a reason. Jeremiah 2:33. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. Our people lessened their stature to try to broker peace between themselves and the enemy. And what did it result in? Death. Absolutely.
But his father encouraged 2 of his sons to adopt English names as a sign of respect for English customs. Thus he became Philip. Massasoit died in 1661, when Metacom was about 23 years old. His older son, Wamsutta, known to the English as Alexander, became chief of the Wampanoag. But here's where things get really sketchy. After being summoned to Plymouth, Alexander died mysteriously. Many Wampanoag suspected poisoning. Previously harmonious relations were growing chillier by the day. When Philip became chief after his brother died, he initially continued his father's diplomatic approach, and the colonists kept pushing his buttons. By the 1670s, colonist livestock were destroying Wampanoag crops, they were claiming land through dubious purchases, and Plymouth courts were asserting jurisdiction over indigenous affairs. Basically, they were acting like they owned the place. In 1667, Plymouth established yet another settlement on indigenous land. Rather than fight, Philip negotiated and accepted payment for the land, but he was quietly reaching a breaking point. He used the money from the sale to buy weapons.
So as you're seeing, these people who swore up and down, what'd they do? Encroaching, slowly sliding over land that didn't belong to them, taking things over that didn't belong to them, while lying in your face. And it's the same tactic that they use today. This is why you can never trust your enemy. They'll invite you over. They'll tell you they're a Christian. They'll set out a plate of food for you with a smile in your face while you swallow down that poison, both literally and spiritually. And when you look up, you're a second-class citizen in your own land. And now you're stuck. This is how these people get down, y'all. They're like snakes. They're anacondas. They surround and then they put on a slow squeeze. That is how Esau Edom, the so-called white man, gets down in the earth. And it is undeniable. It is politics. And it is policies.
Preparing for what might come. As if things weren't already tense enough. In 16...
Matter of fact, let me get that real quick out of Sirach 12. I want to get specifically this verse. And, we're just going to be jumping back and forth. As he says things, it's going to bring scriptures to mind. Yep. So we have never trust thine enemy, right? But I want to start at verse 12, Sirach 12 and 12. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. So that's he'll pretend to be friendly to take your seat, to take your spot. And that's exactly what he did to our brothers and sisters. Hey, firstly, it's a punishment for our sins that we had to suffer. Hey, they were supposed to come over here and keep the laws, which they didn't. Right, 2 Esdras, the 13th chapter. Nevertheless, this is how the devil gets down. And he will be repaid for this. This is not a day of rejoicing and happiness. Your people suffered on this day, right? In these centuries past. And he's taught the world a lie to overshadow his evil deeds, per usual.
As if things weren't already tense enough, in 1675, a colonial court condemned 3 Wampanoag men to death and executed them. Their alleged crime? Murdering an indigenous Christian convert who had been spying on King Philip for the colonists. This incident highlighted a growing fracture at the time. Some indigenous were converting to Christianity and spending a lot of time around the colonists, and they weren't always loyal to their original communities. Remember that. It'll be important later. For the Wampanoag, the execution of
Conan. So someone, Northern Kingdom got over there and do what they do today. Conan, right? Ephraim, he had joined himself to the people. Oh, let me get that. Another in which Ephraim is the head of the Northern Kingdom. Northern Kingdom has a special love for Zaddy, and that came and bit him in the ass for this one. Hosea, what is that, 4 and 17? Yep. Hosea 4 and 17, it says, Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. Right? They love to commit idolatry. And it came back to bite them in this instance. Hosea 7, and I'm going to get verse 11. It says, Ephraim also is like a silly dove without heart. They call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. Showing you that our people, specifically Northern Kingdom, they have a hard-on for running to the enemy and joining themselves to them. In ancient times, Egypt and Assyria, literally in today's time, it's Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Having no idea that you're making leagues and unions with the enemy who is planning on killing you.
For the Wampanoag, the execution of 3 of their own was the final straw. The Wampanoag had their own law and order systems, their own way of punishing transgressions. The colonists really thought they could just kidnap their people and put them to death with no consequences? Philip hit his limit. He believed that coexistence was no longer possible. The total subjugation of indigenous people was inevitable unless they fought back. Of course, this war was preventable. Even the English Parliament warned the colonists that they wouldn't support a war and cautioned them to practice restraint. It just seemed like an unnecessary hassle. But in an early sign of things to come, the colonists chose to operate, shall we say, independently of Great Britain. They felt they could handle this little rebellion on their own. How hard could it be?
Running late? With Braun, you can still look.
Philip understood the importance of building alliances across tribal lines, something that had never been done at this scale against colonial aggressors. His
So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, y'all.
Coalition eventually, Wampanoag warriors attacked their first settlement, marking the official start of what would become known as King Philip's War. By winter, the colonists lived in...
So King Philip War, y'all. This is the family that originally, participated in so-called Thanksgiving, right? Father Masoet, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Eventually his son, to stand up for his people, had to get to war after these Edomites are taking all the land and, as we saw, killed off some of their own people. So the King Philip fights back, and it results in, what we got now. They fought, but it wasn't successful in the end.
Genuine terror. Philip's forces had attacked over a dozen colonial settlements across New England. In March 1676, they burned Providence, Rhode Island to the ground. Indigenous warriors
So now I'm just going to be jumping around, letting you see, because basically he's just going to be going into different war facts. And I mainly just want to get, how this all wraps up. So I'm just be hopping around every couple seconds. If I play the whole video, they'll probably snatch the video down. So just listen for the snippets.
Superior marksmen who had grown up hunting with precision weapons like bows and arrows, spears, tomahawks, and war clubs. English militia training focused on firing large volleys indiscriminately, not hitting precise targets. So while the colonists were the ones who brought guns to the New World, King Philip's forces were already way better at using them.
Yep. So, man for man, the Gadites and Reubenites, right, the rest of the Northern Kingdom, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, they're better fighters man for man. But Esau had that technology and he had that cunning. And the Heavenly Father gave him the blessing to be able to get this land taken over. Regardless of the fact that we were better warriors shoulder for shoulder. It all had to happen according to prophecy.
Indigenous forces would appear, strike, then vanish across rivers after
Guerrilla warfare, something that at this time, the Americans, which were coming right over from Britain, they weren't used to dealing with this kind of warfare.
destroying bridges by about 700 indigenous warriors lying in wait. King Philip's War, the winter of 1675, marked the turning point. English forces from Massachusetts and Connecticut finally got on the same page and attacked an indigenous fort. The fighters were elsewhere, and the colonists killed a bunch of women, children, elderly, and wounded people. But what
Just like homie mentioned in the other video, this is how Esau gets down, right? Just like the Edomites when they attacked us when we were coming out of Egypt, y'all. What did they do? What did they do? Deuteronomy, what is that, 25? Did they take on the warriors head up? No. What do they like to do? Deuteronomy 25 and 17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee, by the way, when ye are come forth out of Egypt. How he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost, meaning the rear, of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou was faint and weary, and he feared not the power. This is how Esau gets down. He attacks the weak, the vulnerable. He doesn't play fair or square. He's a opportunistic bastard at best. Out the side of my mouth, goddammit. At best. He can have every advantage over you and still try to sneak and snake you. That's how he do.
But what was clearly an atrocity, even by the standards of the day, gave the English momentum to keep fighting. They also evolved. Remember the indigenous Christian converts from earlier? Well, the English did, and they asked for their help. Colonial commanders began fielding mixed units that combined colonial soldiers with indigenous allies who understood the terrain and guerrilla tactics.
There go Northern Kingdom Coonan fighting against his own people, and this is what really helped Esau win the tide too. The traitors of Gad and Reuben, stomach turning, sickening.
The results: Philip's own bravery and resolve had been the backbone of this struggle. The loss was devastating not just for him, but for the cause. A mixed colonial army tracked Philip to Mount Hope, his ancestral stronghold. The hill from which his father Massasoit had reigned when he welcomed the Pilgrims would now be the place where Philip made his last stand. At dawn on August 12, 1676, the colonists attacked the camp. Philip grabbed his gun and rolled down the hillside into the swamp, where two colonists waited. An Englishman whose gun misfired, no comment, and an indigenous Christian convert who shot 2 bullets through Philip's heart. King Philip...
An indigenous Christian convert, meaning what? One of his own fucking people. A coon monkey Gadite, worshiping white man Jesus, shot one of his own brothers through the fucking heart. All these things had to happen, y'all. This is the history behind so-called Thanksgiving that you didn't learn in school. When niggas wasn't sharing bread and corn and niggas wasn't eating food that wasn't gonna go on to exist for another couple hundred years. All right, contrary to all of the all the little Disney specials that they be showing, or I don't know if they still do it, but on the holidays they had a Charlie, what's that son of a bitch? The little nigga with the big head with Snoopy the dog. I forget, Charlie Brown. Yeah, Charlie Brown. The Rudolph the Red Deer, the claymation. All that shit's bullshit and a lie. This is the reality of this place. This is why these devils are trying to switch the history up, because they're ashamed now, but they wasn't ashamed when they was doing it.
Death marked the end of the war, but also the end of any pretense of coexistence. Gone were the days of Massasoit's cooperative trading posts and shared meals. In their place were mutual suspicion and unilateral domination. Philip's body was quartered. His head was cut off and mounted on a pike in Plymouth, where it remained for over 20 years as a
So they quartered him, meaning they chopped him up, right, pulled him apart, and then put his head on a stick for 20 fucking years, y'all. And interestingly enough, here in Michigan, we have a city named Plymouth. Actually, in Michigan, a lot of the cities that we have here and areas are named after the Gadites who ruled the land, right? Pontiac, famously. Wyandotte, right? Plymouth. We have all, and it's all in your face. It's all in your face. cut his head off and put it on a stick for standing up for his people and his land. This is the enemy that you're dealing with, y'all. And they would do this too to the slaves. Whenever slaves would have rebellions, when they finally captured the guy, they'd cut his head off and put it up on a stick. They did this to the Maroons, right? They had Nat Turner hanging for a minute. This is how Esau Edom gets down. This is the brutal history to your country. This is the reality. This is who we're dealing with. And he will be repaid for these things.
Trophy and brutal warning to indigenous people not to rebel against the colonial status quo. The war's end sparked widespread violence against indigenous people across New England. Colonists launched unprompted attacks on indigenous villages, using King Philip's War as a justification for preemptive strikes. What had once been a war now became a genocide. As a result of this sustained violence, indigenous political and military power were nearly extinguished. Of the roughly 18,000 indigenous people living in...
And so he's going to go on to mention how even certain of the coons who had became Christians, there was massacres amongst them as well. So here it is, you niggas did all that cooning. And what did it get you? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing, y'all. Why? Because you trusted your enemy. Right? And this was the prophecy at the end of it all, that this is how these people acquired this land. They didn't do it through noble deeds. They didn't do it through shaking hands and being... They got it through deception. And if it wasn't for Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai preserving us, right, they would have completely obliterated Gad, Reuben, and all of Northern Kingdom. That's why it says, where's that? Let me get... Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter. Yep, this is more future prophecy. You have Genesis 49, and then you also have Deuteronomy 33 here. Deuteronomy 33 and 6, it says, "Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few." Why is that? Because Esau tried to exterminate Northern Kingdom, right? Tried to wipe our brothers and sisters the fuck out, literally. Went hard body on them, right? And this prayer was put up, and our people were preserved. Esau, he chopped down a good amount of us, but he didn't get us all. He gonna wish he got us all. We gonna make the nigga wish he got us all, but he didn't. All right, all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, and I just wanted to highlight that's the history behind this shit. King Philip's War. This wasn't no happy-go-lucky ass motherfucking day, nigga. Motherfuckers was fighting and dying. Motherfucking kids was getting killed, chopped up. Motherfuckers was getting burnt. While today, these fat GMO eating motherfuckers is stuffing their stomach and watching a football game some damn where. Your people were bleeding and dying, getting drugged through the cold trail of tears, right? Getting tied to poles and burnt the fuck alive. That's the history of these people. So hey, that's it, y'all. I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Chakurash, the honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim, Wa Akwath, learning, teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom.